Oh, I thought I'd share some memories of the Martha Graham ferry boat this afternoon. Um, I used to ride this ferry boat that was between Gent and Vevay, Indiana, as a child. And when people came, my friends, often we would go to the Ohio River and go down and ride on the ferry boat. You could cross the river and not spend any money, so we could ride back and forth across the river. If we wanted to get off in Vevay and walk up to Max Rosenberger's um, soda fountain, then it cost us a quarter each way. A lot of times we go to Vevay because you could walk. And of course, we did not have a car. We were too young to drive. And many people at that time, families didn't even own a car. Some people had one vehicle, and so it was very different then than it is today when everyone travels a lot and crosses bridges and drive around. So the days of the ferry boat, you had a lot of foot traffic. There were many people who worked at the Vevay shoe factory, and they would go down to the river, cross over on the ferry boat, and walk to work. Other people would drive from Carrollton or around, come down to the ferry landing, park their car, and walk, get on the ferry boat, and cross over and walk to work. So this was a different time um, when the ferry boat was a vital link between Kentucky and Indiana in the Jet Vevay neighborhood. The ferry boat closed usually at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. And if you missed the ferry boat, you had to find a way or drive all the way to Madison, Indiana, and cross on the bridge. If it stormed, sometimes they shut down the ferry boat early. So people were very much aware of what was happening storm wise and weather wise on the Ohio River. The ferry boat tied up at Gent because the owners at the time of my time lived in Gent. And so the ferry boat was active until they built were starting to build the bridge across the Markland Dam above Gent and Vevay. The ferry boat was a lot of times we knew everybody who operated the ferry boat, and so they were very all right with us riding the ferry boat. We would climb up in the cabin very often and talk to the person driving the ferry boat, which very often in my lifetime was James Andrew Bond. Also, the the ferry boat was a very common scene on the river. There were times that some kids would jump off the ferry boat and swim when it was tied up. So it was a great part of our lives. It was a fun experience. It was much more exciting crossing the river on the ferry boat than it is driving across the bridge. I have a painting, Mike Danner, of the Gent Vevay ferry. And so this was the excitement we had. Standing along, there's the pilot house, and we would climb up there and and watch them drive the boat across. Down on the decks, where the cars and trucks would get on the boat, we would stand along the sides, and you could feel the breeze and the water splashing up. So it was a nice ride, especially in the hot summer, and it was a real treat, as I said, when we had company come to go across the ferry boat. At the time, the last days of the ferry boat, when they were talking about selling the ferry boat, what to do with the ferry boat, some of us worked on a plan of saving the boat. Dr. Tom Kaufman was the assistant superintendent of Switzerland County Schools at the time. And Mr. Ralph Tilley was president of Vevay Deposit Bank. And so there was a hope of saving the ferry just for recreational purposes and historic and nostalgic purposes. But it was given up because of the cost of maintenance of the boat and all the issues. It was so much of a big undertaking that it was, the hope of doing that was abandoned. And but I can say that it was a lot of fun and a lot of joy of having the ferry boat and having those memories. And so we had a good time with the Vevay ferry.